When you came in the front gate, that is the most fortified piece of concrete in the face of the earth. That was the same gate that all the tanks came through in 1940, 1941. It is thick, so we could land a 747 on our front gate and it wouldn't crack at all. Vandenberg has a history. And the same history that started is the same things we do today. The first spy satellite that the government launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base, that was called the Corona program. I will tell you that about 5 years ago that was still classified. But now we can talk about the Corona program. The other thing is ICBM testing. Developing the Thor, well that was in medium range, but the Atlas and the Titan and the Minuteman programs were all done at Vandenberg, and that's still a heritage that goes through to this day. We'll talk a little bit more about the Western Range. Everyone knows that we were going to have the shuttle here, for those that have lived here a while, and then we had the terrible tragedy for Challenger, and that kind of changed what we do with our Space Launch Complex. Developed the Peacekeeper ICBM. Wonderful weapon system, but I believe the ICBM worked perfectly because it's no longer on alert. And when you can bring a weapon system on alert and then you can take it off alert, that's good for our country. And it did its job. Huge change in the 1990s. This base, and we're getting better at how we organize so we can learn a lot from the civilian community. This base used to have two commanders. On the northern part of the base was the Strategic Air Command commander for the base, and that was a 1-star. On the southern part of the base, and our base cuts right in line with Highway 246 where our Space Launch Complexes are, that was a different command, Air Force Systems Command. In the 1990s, all that went under one command, and that was a 1-star general. When they stood up the numbered Air Force, who's a 2-star, they downgraded the wing commander position to a colonel because you can only have one general on the base, so that's how that all worked out. But it was great, and I'll tell you, the other thing we did was we stood up a numbered Air Force for space. We never had that before of a single entity responsible for all space activities for the United States Air Force. And when you look at everything you do from a day-to-day basis, and I could have my friend Andrea Seastrand go into details, but we can't live without space. You can't even pump gas without space. And having an individual responsible for that on the military side is just a wonderful activity. 2000 is where we are today. We flew out some of our old weapon systems we'll talk about. Missile defense. Vandenberg is an operational missile defense interceptor site. We have operational missile defense interceptors on alert today. There's also operational interceptors in Fort Greely, Alaska. The difference between Vandenberg and Fort Greely, we do operations and we do testing. All testing for the mid-course defense for missile defense will happen for Vandenberg Air Force Base. They did initial testing down at the Reagan test site called Kwajalein, for those who know that, about 4,200 nautical miles southwest of here. All that equipment is getting moved to Vandenberg and will be the center of all missile defense testing. And now we're going to a better launch vehicle, the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle. In the past, I was playing to Karen, we would launch stuff, and I'll tell you, it was very dangerous, the fuels we would put on board. Believe it or not, we use environmentally friendly fuels now that really turn into water. So we're doing things a lot better and still providing us the power we need. So you can, as I'll talk about, be a great steward of the environment at the same time you can protect your country. We are a small city, 99,000 acres. To put into a difference, Vandenberg Air Force Base is 45 square miles, is the size of Vandenberg Air Force Base. Roughly about a $362 million budget. Out of that budget is where we pay the hospital, and Colonel Beecher gets about $25 million that she gets for that money. We also spend about $28 million a year on the environment at Vandenberg Air Force Base. I don't think there's anyone better on the central coast of California that takes care of the environment better than the place you're at right now. We put an awful lot of effort into the environment. We have 14 endangered species, and we protect those endangered species. One of them is the snowy plover that you may hear about in the paper. When I got here, we had 13 endangered species. So I don't know if I'm succeeding or I'm failing. We have 14. And the 14th endangered species is the vernal pool fairy shrimp. You ever heard of that? Neither of us. But the vernal pool fairy shrimp is like the small shrimp. Nothing you'd see at like a good seafood restaurant, but this little shrimp that lives in vernal pools. Okay. What makes this thing so remarkable is when the vernal pools dry up, they go into a stasis. And then just like sea monkeys when we were kids, you can add water and they come back to life. Some of them come back to life after 100 years. My little mind's saying, my God, I think we can use that for medicine somehow, but I'm not sure how we can do it. So we protect the vernal pool fairy shrimp. We also have archaeological sites here. The Chumash Indians are in this region, okay? If you go on South Vandenberg, there's a place called Tranquillian Peak, and we have some radar sites on Tranquillian Peak. If you look to the right on Tranquillian Peak, you're going to see some rock carvings that the Chumash use as kind of a religious event, so we kind of protect that area for them. But down in the valley at Vandenberg Air Force Base, we had 11,000 Chumash that lived there 3,500 years ago. A lot of remains that are there, and we protect all those remains. And you can see the resources. I will tell you that we had an environmental inspection. You get one environmental inspection every 3 years from an external agency. Every year you do an internal one, and we got 70% better than we previously did. And our positives skyrocketed, and even though we had items to work on, they were a lot smaller than last time. So an organization always trying to get better, we do a great job of taking care of the environment. Next slide. This is who we are. I will tell you that I just want to highlight 3 things because we're really focusing on 3 items. You know, in the military, you have a mission, and that's what you focus on. This base does 3 things better than anybody else in the free world. Number 1 is we run the Western Range, and you can't launch anything out of Vandenberg without having a range to do that, because my sole job here on day of launch is to make sure that life and property are protected. So, number 1, that's what we do. Number 2 is we launch stuff here. We put things into orbit. We put it in for our government, for the National Reconnaissance Office, those other satellites we don't talk about. We had a launch, I'm going to say about 4 to 6 weeks ago, and we put up a NASA satellite and a French satellite together to do some environmental monitoring of the world. A couple of weeks before that, we put up 6 Taiwanese satellites. So we do a lot of work for international as well as for our own government. And then the final thing we do is we do expeditionary operations. We send people into war zones. And I will tell you, we're going into non-traditional roles. So when I say we're sending people into war zones, it's not your typical Air Force person we can all joke about. You know, the Air Force guy sitting behind the desk on an email. We send civil engineers. We send security force members, we send transporters, we send people from every different category that go into combat zones in convoys in Baghdad, throughout Iraq. So making sure that our people are properly trained is obviously a priority, but making sure their spouses back here are taken care of is equally important. And one thing that the Mission Support Group Commander does is every Thursday night we have a dinner for the spouses, where the chaplain goes, the command chief goes. I will tell you, I send my wife there because people will talk to my wife more than they'll talk to me. Because I realize that in a large organization, you're going to have problems. Trying to get those problems to bubble up to me sometimes is difficult because a lot of people don't want to come to the boss and say this. But they'll talk to my wife. And they'll tell my wife the problems they're having, and I'll tell you that is wonderful because then I can go to the Mission Support Group who loves to get my phone calls to say, you know what, you got a problem over here, you need to fix it. Or I go to the hospital and say, you know what, I think we need to work something at the pharmacy. Not to highlight our problems, but then we can take care of those spouses. I've been deployed to, I was at Qatar, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan and Bahrain and the whole Pleasure Palace whole thing over there. Last year, I did that for about 4 months, and I was also deployed for 13 months to Thule, Greenland. I will tell you that when you're away in those locations, minor problems back home are major when you don't have a spouse at home. The disposal not working is a big deal. Going to the hospital and maybe not having a prescription for your kid that's sick is a big deal. It may not be a big deal when both parents are home, so we work hard on that. I will tell you that the range is huge, and it goes from California down to Hawaii, all the way down to the Reagan test site. We control the scheduling of all that, all the way down to the U.S. Army Kwajalein Atoll, 4,200 nautical miles away, because there's an office called the Joint Pacific Area Scheduling Office, and we are in charge of the Joint Pacific Area Scheduling Office. Now, I'll tell you one thing that we do. We do aircraft testing here, so every F-22 that's at Edwards Air Force Base uses Vandenberg Air Force Base for their testing. Getting the B-2 certified back in the old days, 90s, late 80s, that was all done in Vandenberg Air Force Base airspace. And I'll show it on another slide why, as well as any of the other future weapon systems we have. We're pretty busy. We do about 15,000 range operations per year. That is calling it up a radar to do testing, getting ready for space launch. It has to do with F-22 scheduling. So when you look at 15,000 operations with 365 days in the year, you can see that our folks are very, very busy. Next slide. Briefly talk about it. We have optics and communications up and down the coast of California. We work very closely with the Naval Air Warfare Center at Point Mugu. We have sites there that we share with them. In Hawaii, down at the Reagan test site. The other thing we control is something called the West Coast Offshore Operating Area, and that goes from Washington all the way down the coast of, to Baja, California, and it's 200 miles wide. Why is that important? That is an extremely stable air mass. So you can do hypersonic testing in that stable air mass, and it's not like you're worrying about, you know, flying around Denver. For those that have flown into Denver, and you get things whipping off the Rocky Mountains. Very stable air mass. We do an awful lot of testing there. Who's taking calculus? Don't you love it?
That's fun.
Really? I hate it. Even though I like statistics. That was kind of fun. Okay, why do we launch from Vandenberg? The United States government has a policy that we're not going to launch. Exactly. We're going to make sure that we don't launch overpopulated areas because, you know, we protect property. I will tell you, even though I'm being recorded, not every country thinks the way we do. All right. If you launch from Cape Canaveral, the Earth is already spinning, so when you launch from Cape Canaveral, that gets you out into that equatorial orbit. So if you're going to put things in an equatorial orbit, or you're going to put things in what we call a geostationary orbit, 22,000 miles above the Earth, where the satellite's moving the same side as the Earth, that's why you launch from the equator. You launch from Vandenberg when you want to put things into a polar orbit, because now you can launch due south, and the first landmass you hit is Antarctica. That is a great way to launch things. And then we can launch due west into the Kwajalein Atoll. The Kwajalein Atoll is 4,200 nautical miles away, but the Earth is rotating. So it simulates maybe going to other places in the world very accurately. That's why we do that. As well as for missile defense testing, it brings another great environment. Missile defense interceptors are at Vandenberg. The target vehicle is going to be in Alaska. So if you can see, if you're going to do a test, all you have to do is launch from Alaska. I mean, there's a lot to this thing, the way it sounds. You just have to launch due south, and then you launch the interceptor from Vandenberg, and you whack it. It's a pretty cool thing. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that, but, you know. Next slide. And why you want to be in a polar orbit? You're in a polar orbit, the Earth rotates, everyone knows about that. So these are the items that you can do. So we do an awful lot of weather launches from here, an awful lot of the reconnaissance, surveillance, and targeting things. Combat rescue, but the capability from launching from Vandenberg is a big deal, and that's why Vandenberg will be here, I believe, for a relatively long period of time. Briefly on ICBM testing, all ICBM testing is done here. We have 5 launches per year. You can see 830 space launches on the previous slide, 1,034 ICBM launches. So an awful lot of ICBM launches. Our next ICBM launch is on the 19th of July, and one thing that I'm really proud of is we're standing up a new center. It's the Western Range Operations Control Center. The center we're operating under today is the same center I did when I was a captain. It was the same center that Major General Shelton worked in when he was a lieutenant. As a matter of fact, I could back it up even more, but it's old. Ron Cotopaxi is old, and he worked in there, and it's just old. We're standing up a new center. What we decided was we need to get it going because the building's been here a while. We activated in December the Airspace Control Center. For launches, we control airspace, sea space, and trains a little bit. I'll kind of talk a little about that. We just stood up on the last launch the Weather Center. The next launch in July, we're going to stand up everything minus range safety, because range safety is a very complicated issue and we'll still work with some of the software pieces. So we're going to be operating at the new Western Range Operations Center, which is a state-of-the-art facility. It looks wonderful, and it's going to provide us capability to be more flexible and get out of that 1950s building that is very difficult to maintain. This is what our role in missile defense is. Our role is really threefold. All missile defense production for our nation is done at Vandenberg. The boosters may be made at the factory, but all the preparations for them are done here. And then they're put on a C-17 and they're flown down to, or flown up to Kodiak, up in Alaska. So we do all the production for that. 30th Space Wing's role to help missile defense is we have quality assurance responsibilities to make sure the contractor is doing what the contractor needs to do. That's our role. All support for missile defense, communications, civil engineering is all done, and security, all done by the 30th Space Wing. The other thing we're responsible for is the testing of those assets. So we do all that, and I'll tell you, we showed the picture there, the airborne laser. That plane will be coming back to Vandenberg in either 2007 and 2008. That is another great capability, and I'll tell you, a lot of smart people developing some great capability for our nation. The other thing we stood up is a Pacific Range Support Team. In order to assist Missile Defense Agency and working with all the different ranges in the Pacific and with the Navy and the Army and everybody else, we started a separate group that works with the ranges. We had an individual here that works for us to make sure that as we're doing coordination among the different ranges, we're all talking with one voice to the Missile Defense Agency to provide better support. It's a better way to do business. I just want to show you where we are today. We have 137 people deployed. We have 348 people postured for deployment. The majority of people that you see on this map are deployed for greater than 179 days. And I will tell you they're probably gone for about 270 days. I'll show you about a little bit of the economic impact. Vandenberg brings into the community about $1.5 billion a year. You saw the budget of the base, about $362 million a year. All the money to do those rockets is another path of money that comes into the base. And when you look at civilian pay, it's about $1.5 billion to the economy, which is important. You can see where our pay and wages kind of break out, utilities, the environmental, the services piece. So a lot of money goes into the local economy, which we're really proud for. We'll talk about military construction and where we're going for the base. We're going to be breaking ground, hopefully in a few months, for a new fitness center. Fitness is a big deal for us right now, and it's been a big deal for about 5 years, and it's important. And the reason it's important is we all have to be ready to deploy at a moment's notice. You need to be physically fit in order to do that. We put an awful lot of emphasis on fitness. We believe we need a new wing headquarters building. Right now we share the building with 14th Air Force, Numbered Air Force. That Numbered Air Force has become joint. More people are coming into it, and right now they really need a separate facility. I will tell you that's a tough sell, but as I told Andrea that I'll be going up and talking to Congress, I am fortunate, and this isn't a joke, Vandenberg is in 2 congressional districts. The coast is one congresswoman. The main Cantonment area is a 2nd congressional district. I look at that as a plus. That should give me 2 people to help me do things. So I'm looking forward to meeting with Congresswoman Capps as well as Congressman Gallagher as we start working on that. Some of the other stuff we're working on is replacing a bridge. A bridge, you may not think, infrastructure is important even though it's not sexy. And the reason it's important is this is the bridge that we carry all our $2 billion satellites over to get up to the southern part of the base. So if there was a bad storm, we lost the bridge, we lose an awful lot. So we have that, as well as you can see, an addition of the fitness center, child development center, and we're trying to do some innovative ways on an education center in the out years. Maybe we can partner with the local community, partner with Alan Hancock, and we can maybe get some stuff done. Next slide. A little bit, I will tell you that we have the best damn fire department in the United States Air Force, and that's because of Chief Arias. He does a tremendous job. As a matter of fact, I was fortunate that I got selected in January to become part of the Installation Excellence Selection Board. The Commander-in-Chief, the Commander-in-Chief, has a program to select the best bases in each of the services. I was on the team to look at the Air Force bases. I went to Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico. This is one trip. We flew to Kunsan in Korea, and then we went to Ramstein. And when I went to Kunsan and I went to Ramstein, they said, Mark Farias works for you. I go, yeah. You're not going to judge me against him, are you? I go, of course. They go, well, we're going to lose. Having the best fire department, but we have the best firefighter, but I'll tell you, we have people that are selfless. We had a firefighter who gave a kidney away. It wasn't a relative. He was just a match. I can't think of anything more selfless than that. But you can see, best baseless squadron, Library of the Year, Outstanding Chapel Service Team.
Doug Crawford here with the Santa Barbara Navy League at Vandenberg Air Force Base. We're here this afternoon with Colonel Weinstein of the 30th Space Wing. And we are here after having a wonderful presentation to the Santa Barbara Navy League. We'd like to thank you for that. I'd like to ask you what it is that the Santa Barbara Navy League, when you think of Navy, can do to support you here in Santa Barbara County. We have 1,250 members, the largest Navy League in the United States without a port. And we think of ourselves as Santa Barbarans and Americans before we think of ourselves as Navy people. So is there anything we can do to support you?
I think the best thing you can do is the support you're providing right now. We're proud of the 6,000 people that call Vandenberg Air Force Base home. For our airmen that are located in the area, just providing that military support and supporting our troops, supporting our spouses that are here is the right way to take care of the people on Vandenberg.
Well, supporting your spouses and your family, I think that's one of the most important things that any kind of a military league can do. And we would like very much to be able to have contact with the Air Force Base and be able to provide that local support. And in addition to that, given that we are Navy, if there are any Air Force people here that have sons and daughters in the Navy, we'd like to know firsthand who those are so that we can extend our letters and our hand across the oceans to keep them close to home.
Well, I appreciate it. As I told the audience earlier, that my son's in the United States Navy, stationed in Groton, Connecticut. I'm proud of him. He's a machinist mate, petty officer. So we're a true military joint family. So the support we get from you, as well as support that the Navy League, I'm sure, is providing my son in Connecticut, is inspiring to me as a parent, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, sir, for your leadership. More importantly, thank you for your service to our country, and God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're here at Vandenberg Air Force Base with the Honorable Andrea Seastrand, who has helped arrange a visit for the Navy League to come up to Vandenberg and get a mission briefing from Colonel Weinstein. Most importantly, in talking with you, though, Andrea, I'd like to understand something about your project that you're heading up right now, which is the California Space Authority.
We're a nonprofit entity, and we are contracted with the state of California to be their spaceport authority. And our major concern is to bring voice and visibility to space enterprise in California. It's amazing, Doug, to realize that we have 24% of space enterprise in the international arena. So when you think this is here and now, and so the California Space Authority is trying to bring voice and visibility to that, and also to retain what we have here in California, to grow it, and to help develop some new markets.
Well, when I think of a spaceport, that's kind of an exciting word to use. Is there anything private about space travel in the future?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think if you were reading the headlines about a year ago, you heard about Burt Rutan and his Spaceship One and our new Mojave Inland Spaceport, the first in the 50 states of the U.S. And we have here a private spaceport. SSI is a company that has the California Spaceport here at Vandenberg Air Force Base. So we're going to see a lot more developing over the next several years and into the future regarding private spaceports.
Well, the work that you've done, of course, working as one of our lead politicians and representatives of the people in years past, has led to your understanding and knowledge of economic impact, of course, that takes place. And I was really excited to learn about something called WIRED. Can you tell us what happened with WIRED?
Yes, it was a proposal that is basically President Bush American Competitiveness Initiative, and he spoke of it during his State of the State. And I would say that all of us, whether we're Democrat, Republicans, Libertarians, or such, are concerned about the 21st century and global competitiveness. And so this is an initiative from the Department of Labor to work on these concerns. And the California Space Authority was one of 13 throughout the United States that was awarded a $15 million grant. Now you say, whoa, $15 million for CSA. I might say that we have 68 partners, and of those 68 partners, 50 are being funded. And we have what we created, a new California Innovation Corridor from the Bay Area to San Diego and inland to the Inland Empire and to Antelope Valley. And what we tried to do is scoop in our military bases that have space assets, also our 3 NASA centers, our industry, both in Silicon Valley and along our areas into Los Angeles and Orange County, and then to definitely, as I want to reiterate, those military bases such as Vandenberg, Los Angeles Air Force Base, Edwards Air Force Base, Spacewar, San Diego.
Huge.
All of those entities, and how can we leverage, talk to one another, and look for opportunities by leveraging what we have.
Well, when I hear all of that, of course, I think of workforce development and what are the resources that are around Vandenberg and around Central California. Yes. I guess this is going to be the home base for that. Is that correct?
Well, it's part of the California Innovation Corridor, and naturally the Central Coast is involved in that, and Vandenberg is one of the key players in this. But we're looking to not only talent development, but workforce education situation. I think everybody, if you were to read The Gathering Storm, there is a concern about where our future mathematicians, scientists, and engineers are coming from. How are we teaching our children in the school, and in the elementary to the high school to the universities? And then, there's the manufacturing, the value chain, the supplier chain. How do we help the manufacturers in California and the United States to be competitive, again, in this international arena? And finally, it's the idea of having innovation, ideas, and how do we move that more quickly? Take an idea and move it to an entrepreneur so a new business can be developed, and then we can see the what's going to happen out of that. So it's a 3-year project. It's big, and they're looking for transformational change. So this isn't something that's going to be a study that's going to be put on the shelf. As an outgrowth of this very large $15 million grant, we have 25 projects, and we're looking to have transformational change out of each and every one of them.
Well, you're extraordinary with all the hats that you wear and all the things that you make happen, but most of all from the Santa Barbara Navy League, thank you so much for today and the event at Vandenberg, and we wish you all the success, and we will be here to help you.
You bet. A great relationship.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're Carl and Patty Cassidy from Santa Barbara. The Navy League is a wonderful organization for a very good cause, and everyone should go on. Thank you.
We're proud of the men and women that serve, and the Navy League puts on great trips. Like today we went to Vandenberg and had a wonderful tour. Thank you, Navy League.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Fred Sedon, and I am the president of the outfit in Santa Barbara, but I'm also a member of the Navy League. I joined about 30 years ago and then rejoined here when I was in Puerto Rico, the Caribbean Command. And I think it's a great organization and does a wonderful job for our young men and women in service, who I think should be supported every means possible. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Redding, and I just came back from a tour of Vandenberg organized by the Santa Barbara Navy League chapter, and it was just a terrific event for the Navy League to sponsor, and we met some outstanding people to tell us about the space age and how successful we've all been in it. It was fascinating, and I recommend that anybody join up with the Navy League.
I'm Dick Eiler, and my wife and I, Monica, joined the Navy League as life members. Monica has got a very strong maritime background. Her father was a chief engineer in the Norwegian Maritime. And I have a real soft spot in my heart for Marines, as I served in 1950 for a very short time in the Marine Corps. We particularly enjoy the Navy League, and we really want to support our troops. We feel that, especially after touring the Ronald Reagan, seeing the quality of the young men, the expertise that they have shown and their officers have shown, I tell you, I'm sure glad that they're all on our side. It's a great opportunity. Join the Navy League.
In behalf of the Village Properties Realtors, we'd like to thank the Navy League for an outstanding day at the Vandenberg Air Force.
Good fun all around, and the Navy League is a wonderful organization for all of you that don't know, and I think what we do is just a small part of what the service people are doing for us.
My name is Andrew Long. I'm a former Royal Naval officer, and I've recently appointed to the Board of Directors for the Santa Barbara Council of the Navy League. And what I'd like to say is that if I, a British Royal Naval officer, can join the Navy League of the United States, then surely you should as well.
Hi, I'm Corey, and I work at Monroe Elementary School, and I'm a part of the Navy League because the armed services matter, and the Navy is doing a hell of a job, and we want to thank them because right out here is the ocean, and we got to look at it every day, and to say thank you for those people that don't see land more than about 2 months out of the year. Thank you very much.